Hi. Welcome to Movie Explained in English. Today, I am going to explain a German thriller movie titled, One Way, which was released in the year 2006. The movie starts with a creative director's thriving life descends into turmoil as he backs his friend's offender, leading him to lose everything he worked for. On May 12, 1998, 4 men chased a teenager and exploited her in the woods. Suddenly, the general arrived on the scene, swiftly intervening by shooting one of the assailants. As the second aggressor attempted to escape, the high-ranking official aimed again, successfully stopping him. As a result, the 2 remaining culprits kneel and surrender. However, the officer proceeds to end their lives as well before completely disappearing. Finally safe from her perpetrators, the teen sits on the ground alone, processing the shocking event that had happened to her. Years later, in New York, Eddie Schneider, the charismatic, creative director of a prestigious advertising firm, arrives in style with his partner Judy at an opulent mansion. Stepping out of the car, he receives a warm welcome from his boss and his girlfriend's father, Russell, who is with his wife, Linda. Meanwhile, Anthony, the design lead's colleague, and the superior's son, engages with the family dog nearby. Within the luxurious house, Eddie takes the stage to announce his engagement to Judy, seeking the executive's blessing for their union. In a playful tone, the firm owner adds that he'll approve the marriage after the creative director seals the deal with their airline client the next day. Following his joke, the supportive chief gives his blessing, expressing excitement to have him as part of the family. The next day, as Eddie heads out for work, he shares a kiss with his fiancée, who wishes him luck with his presentation. However, before reaching the office, he meets his mistress Vicky for an intimate time, revealing his womanizing tendencies. Shortly after, he accelerates his car towards the company building, swiftly attempting to arrive on time for his pitch. At the Burke advertising agency, Russell and Anthony notify their major airline client, Edgar, about the creative director's delay. Upon receiving the news, the guest displays dissatisfaction with the presenter's unprofessional attitude. Trapped in traffic, Eddie immediately calls the receptionist, Nora, and instructs her to provide iced coffee to Edgar. Nevertheless, when the client takes a sip, he promptly spits it out and feels unsatisfied. Upon the creative director's arrival, he tactfully advises the front desk clerk to call him on his cell phone just before the presentation, setting the stage for a dramatic entrance. Following the call, Eddie inquires about Edgar's feelings, leading the disappointed client to express his intention to ditch the meeting. In a bid to mediate, Russell steps in, preventing the guest from leaving and subsequently terminating the creative director from his position. Nonetheless, the design lead responds to his superior's decision with a laugh and continues with his presentation, skillfully capturing the attention of the irritated client. During his presentation, his innovative approach captivates the audience. He shrewdly utilized his late arrival and the iced coffee incident to simulate airline clients' frustrations during flight delays. He emphasizes that when disgruntled passengers find themselves in the lounge, confronting a sign that reads, "Can I help you?" only amplifies their disappointment. As a part of his strategy, the creative head whips the current ad prints and suggests a new airline motto, "Your business now." This move impressed Edgar, ultimately prompting the airline client to seal the deal with the advertising agency. After the meeting, Eddie's chief copywriter and close friend, Angelina, congratulates him, mentioning that he should have informed her in advance. In response, the creative director explains that the idea struck him while he was on the road, leaving him no time to give her a heads up. Celebrating their successful pitch, the design lead and his advertising writer head to a sushi bar and raise their glasses in a toast. During their time there, he discloses his engagement, prompting her to advise him to leave behind his womanizing ways. Playfully, she makes him swear on a menu as part of their lighthearted conversation. Upon returning to the office, Russell and the entire agency commend Eddie for his triumphant presentation. This recognition results in the boss promoting the creative director to the position of his business partner. Meanwhile, at home, Judy picks up an unfamiliar scent while smelling her fiancé's laundry. The following morning, Eddie informs his future partner that he'll head out for a run before going to work. However, he detours to Vicky's apartment to tell her he's ending their relationship due to his impending marriage. Unbeknownst to him, his suspicious soon-to-be wife is discreetly investigating his running route. Later at the agency, Anthony subtly confronts Eddie about his presentation gimmick to hide his delay. Also, he brings up marriage as a significant commitment, hinting at his knowledge of his future brother-in-law's secret affair. After work, the creative director and Angelina head to the parking lot to get into their cars. Once the design lead drives off, the copywriter realizes she has left her keys inside the office. Nevertheless, upon her return to the building, she unexpectedly encounters Anthony. He then directly questions whether she had an affair with her sister's future husband. Despite her denial, the perpetrator remains unconvinced and proceeds to exploit her. After taking a shower, the traumatized copywriter heads to the parking lot. There, she sobs and can't get herself to drive home. The following morning, Eddie arrives and finds his best friend in tears in the parking garage. After discovering what Anthony did to Angelina, the creative director becomes enraged and vows to confront his future brother-in-law. However, the shaken woman intervenes, urging him to take her to the hospital instead. Following his colleague receiving medical care, the design lead covers all the expenses and converses with his former partner, Dr. Evelyn. She informs him that the sedated patient is exhibiting symptoms of post-traumatic stress. Enraged, Eddie returns to the office and directly confronts Anthony for taking advantage of Angelina. However, the perpetrator skillfully reverses the scenario and blackmails the creative director, presenting photographic evidence of his affairs. In the meantime, Detective Helen Drake questions the distressed patient and accompanies her to a convent the following day under the care of Sister Merrill. Shortly after dropping her things off, the copywriter heads to the police station to report her complaint. On the way, she attempts to call her best friend, but he rejects the call. Within the advertising firm, the investigator visits Eddie and invites him to testify on behalf of his best friend. However, their conversation is cut short when the company owner, Russell, enters the scene. The detective then takes the opportunity to brief the agency boss about Anthony's connection to the case. In response, the executive engages Bert Ziekinski to establish his son's innocence. In their discussion, the lawyer seeks the creative director's help testifying against Angelina. Faced with the desire to protect his career and marriage, the man agrees to the request to let his colleague get away with his wrongdoing. Later, Helen approaches Eddie and invites him to testify for the copywriter. Regrettably, he declines the request but grapples with sleepless nights due to the burden of betraying his best friend. The next day in court, the womanizer weaves a tale to doubt Angelina's credibility. He claims that his best friend followed him closely when he drove home to prove that she wasn't in the office and that the exploitation was a lie. As she hears her best friend's fabricated story on the stand, the afflicted person feels silently furious, unable to understand why her colleague is protecting the wrongdoer. As Bert interrogates Eddie, the creative director continues to make up a tale about the executive's plan to fire the woman because of her poor performance at work, strengthening his claim that she's unstable. Feeling let down by her best friend's betrayal, a vindictive Angelina takes the stand and asserts that she had an affair with the creative director. In response, Anthony's lawyer accuses the distressed woman of falsehood, suggesting that she accuses men of exploiting her when they don't comply with her wishes. Supporting this claim, Bert refers to the woman's prior police report wherein she detailed an incident of 4 men taking advantage of her until a general intervened and shot the attackers. The legal expert then argues that the accusation never reached trial due to a lack of evidence supporting the exploitation claim and that the mentioned military officer did not exist. Bert then mentions that after the police report, Angelina spent 2 years in a psychiatric clinic due to mental illness. He emphasizes that the woman, who has a history of dishonesty, is repeating her pattern. As a result, Anthony emerges victorious in the case, officially getting away with his heinous act. After the trial, an angry Judy confronts Eddie about his involvement with his copywriter. Despite his denial, the enraged woman remains unconvinced and distrustful. The following morning, the womanizer reaches out to Vicky. Yet, when he requests permission from his fiancée to go for a run, he is taken aback to find her waiting outside their apartment, prepared to run alongside him. While running together, Judy observes that Eddie tires unusually quickly for someone who often uses running as an excuse. This revelation leads her to confront him about his involvement with another woman in the vicinity and urges him to confess to the affair. When the creative director remains silent, his fiancée interprets his lack of response as confirmation and ends their relationship. In the convent, Sister Merrill offers comfort to the distraught Angelina, assuring her that justice will prevail and those responsible for her suffering will face the consequences of their actions. Nevertheless, consumed by despair, the copywriter contemplates ending her life through hanging. Unexpectedly, the general materializes, leading the woman to doubt the reality of his presence. In response, the high-ranking official affirms that he is an actual being and encourages her to be brave. Before he disappears, he advises her to discard her medication, which he claims weakens her. As Angelina disposes of the capsules in the sink, the nun enters and inquires about the person she has been conversing with. In response, the traumatized woman fabricates a lie, explaining that she was merely talking in her sleep. The following day, Russell dismisses Eddie due to the broken engagement, resulting in him losing his position as a business partner. As the creative director highlights his significant contributions to elevating the company's status, the executive offers him a severance package of $200,000. However, this gesture only leaves the employee feeling insulted, given that his contributions far exceeded that amount. With determination, a vengeful Angelina gathers her courage and takes matters into her own hands. That night, she navigates the dark streets and acquires a weapon from an underground merchant. The following morning, Eddie pays a visit to Judy at her newly opened furniture shop to break the news of his termination from the advertising firm. Amidst their conversation, the heartbroken store owner questions her former partner about the extent of his involvement with other women, specifically if it includes Angelina. In response, the former creative lead confesses to engaging in affairs with numerous individuals but clarifies that the copywriter wasn't among them. Eddie then reveals the truth and explains that his best friend fabricated an affair story to get back at him for testifying against her in court. He mentions that he had to lie on the stand because the real culprit, Anthony, discovered his womanizing and blackmailed him into helping him avoid consequences. Learning this, Judy feels let down by her ex-partner's betrayal of his best friend. She walks out, prompting the man to exit the shop. That night, Eddie attends a party, where Anthony taunts him about using his severance money for womanizing. Provoked, the former creative director ends up physically confronting his ex-colleague. Shortly after the bouncers throw the former creative director out of the nightclub, a disguised and vengeful Angelina arrives at the bar to execute her plan. When Anthony orders a drink, the woman discreetly slips an illegal substance on the liquor. As the perpetrator starts to feel disoriented, Angelina invites him into her car and drives to a secluded spot on the pier with the general's approval. Inside the vehicle, the former copywriter secures her assailant to the steering wheel with handcuffs and removes her wig to reveal her true identity. She brandishes a handgun and confronts him, demanding his true motivations for exploiting her. The captive man then admits that he's in love with her and proposes a substantial sum in exchange for his release. Nevertheless, an undeterred Angelina follows through with her scheme, using her advantage over him to make him experience the harm he inflicted on her. Subsequently, she ends her perpetrator's life with a gunshot and disposes of the weapon by discarding it in the bay. Meanwhile, a drunken Eddie heads to his ex-fiancée's apartment. Out of concern for his ex-lover, the woman takes his keys to prevent him from driving off and getting into an accident. She then allows him to stay the night but demands that he should be gone the coming morning. The following day, the former creative leaves his ex-partner's apartment. A moment later, he discovers news of Anthony's passing and accompanies Judy to the memorial service. As they gather there, he unexpectedly spots Angelina among the attendees. Later that night, detectives Paula York and Steve Dwight visit the former copywriter at the convent and inquire about her presence at the funeral. In response, the vengeful woman fabricates a story, asserting that she wrongly accused the deceased man and attended the memorial service solely to pay her respects. When the investigators inquire about her whereabouts on the night of Anthony's demise, Angelina asserts that she never left the premises, with Sister Meryl supporting her statement. Meanwhile, Eddie bounces back as a creative director at a different company and offers Edgar the opportunity to be one of his clients. However, during his presentation, Paula and Steve show up to arrest him. As another part of her revenge scheme, Angelina framed her former colleague to appear as the perpetrator behind Anthony's demise, effectively diverting suspicion from herself. When the detectives highlight Eddie's fingerprints on the victim's body and suggest a possible motive due to his expulsion from the firm, the innocent man vehemently refutes the claim and ends up in prison. During his time in jail, the former copywriter visits him, and he seizes the chance to apologize for testifying against her during Anthony's trial. He also reveals that he knows her involvement in their colleague's demise. When Eddie asks Angelina to admit her murderous action, the traumatized woman refuses. She explains that if she takes his place in the cell, she will only end her life through hanging. When the former creative director suggests that she claims self-defense as a motive for her act, she points out that the justice system will likely let her down, much like it did when she was a teenager. She then explains her desire to have a safe future and family life, leaving her former best friend to face the repercussions of her actions. During Eddie's trial, lawyer Nick Swell emphasizes to the jury that placing blame on an innocent individual occurs when the wrongdoer remains unidentified. While testifying on the witness stand, Vicky admits to her affair with the defendant for several months. She adds that the former creative director terminated the relationship because he was preparing to marry his boss's daughter. During Judy's testimony, she discloses that her ex-partner stayed at her residence the night of her brother's demise and departed the following morning. However, upon hearing her statement, lawyer William Henderson suggests that the defendant could have left in the middle of the night to end Anthony's life. While Eddie is on the stand, the complainant's lawyer insinuates that the former creative director developed a motive to harm Russell Burke's son after being fired from the advertising firm, despite testifying for him during his trial. However, the defendant clarifies that his termination was due to his broken engagement and the executive's choice to maintain the business within the family. Upon hearing this, William asks Eddie about any potential blackmail from Anthony. When the accused man provides a false response, the lawyer presents photographs of the former creative lead's affairs, considering them evidence of extortion. With this evidence, the legal expert reinforces his claim that the ex-creative lead's resentment towards his former colleague's action might have driven him to lie and carry out his murderous plan. After the trial, the Burke family drives home. When they encounter Angelina crossing the street, a furious Linda tells her husband to run over their deceased son's former complainant. However, shortly after the vehicle moves, the tearful Judy demands her father stop the car and gets out of it to relieve herself from her toxic parents. Meanwhile, Nick confronts Eddie for not disclosing the photographic evidence, which weakens their chance of winning the case. In hopes of turning things around, the defendant reveals that Angelina told him she had ended Anthony's life. However, when the lawyer asks him to reveal the truth, the accused man declines, pointing out that his ex-best friend would only end her life in prison. To convince him to testify, the legal expert explains that his friend will only have 4 or 5 years in jail because Anthony exploited her. The following day, Eddie takes the stand and recounts Angelina's visit. As he sees the traumatized woman among the attendees, he changes his mind about telling the truth and only informs the court that his friend feels sorry for him and wishes him luck in the trial. Upon hearing this, the judge and the crowd laugh at the unimportant statement. To support her former partner, Judy confers with Nick and requests to testify truthfully the following morning. When she takes the stand, the furniture shop owner asserts that the accused man couldn't have committed the murderous action because she had taken his car keys, implying he remained in her apartment throughout the night. When the lawyer inquires why she didn't disclose these details in her initial testimony, she explains that her brother is the actual wrongdoer and has exploited numerous women, including herself, when she was a teenager. She emphasizes that her sibling consistently evaded consequences because her wealthy father always covered up his misdeeds. Following the trial, Linda and Russell grapple with the controversy surrounding their deceased son's reprehensible actions. Meanwhile, Eddie is proven innocent, yet the identity of Anthony's assailant remains unidentified to public knowledge. Inside the courtroom, Judy approaches Angelina and begins to ask a question. However, before she can finish, the former copywriter nods, presuming that the woman is about to inquire if she is the perpetrator. Following her interaction with her fellow sufferer, Judy embraces Eddie, who commends her for her courage on the witness stand. Simultaneously, Angelina leaves the building and catches a taxi to the airport, excited to start a new life. Leaving the courthouse, the former couple shares a reminder to take care and a parting kiss before heading their separate ways. This is my explanation for the movie, One Way. So what do you guys think about the movie? Write in the comment. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on the notification and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.